Start our practice today in hands and knees, tabletop pose, with your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Walk your arms forward now slightly in front of your shoulders so that you can push back into child's pose. Let your big toes tap together. Relax the fronts of your ankles and the tops of your thighs, and then sit down towards your heels with your hips as you gently rest your forehead on the floor. Keep stretching your arms, lifting your elbows and your inner wrists. Use your triceps to push your arms straight. And breathe right into that low back area from your belly into your back. Inhale. And exhale, soften. And take another round of breath here just to inhale, invigorate, refresh your body, and exhale, relax before we start to move. Stay here as long as you'd like. And on your next inhale, start to lift up into a tabletop position. Tuck your toes under and lift your hips up. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And here still, arms are strong. Use your triceps to press your arms to straight. Lift your inner arches. You can drive your thigh bones back and let that action drive your heels towards the floor. But try not to pull your heels down and pull your hips under. So keep your sit bones lifting up and your low back lengthening and extending. Relax your neck, maybe a block under your head, or if your head can come to the floor comfortably without pushing. But be mindful of your shoulders, not to pinch the tops of your shoulders or the rotator cuff attachments. Spread your chest out open and spread your upper back open as you breathe from your belly into your back ribs and all the way up across your shoulder blades and collarbones. Strong hands, pinching the mat with your index finger and thumb to prevent slipping. Sometimes it just happens, can't really help it. And so you have to maybe once in a while just continue to walk your hands back. Maintain the space between your hands and feet, so that you can feel equal balance support in hands and feet. So if you feel like one end is holding up more weight, you may have to adjust your spacing. And then after another really big, nice, smooth round of breath here, we're going to come up into a standing forward bend. Start to then look forward and walk your feet forward to your hands. Uttanasana. Separate your feet as far or as close as you need them to be. Maybe even a micro bend in your knees. Letting the forward bend happen mostly from your hips. And then when your hips can't hinge anymore or rotate anymore, let the back round and let your forward bend move out through your spine, down through the top of your head. Hands can rest on the floor or a block, a couple blocks. Keep the weight in your feet more towards the fronts of your feet. Not that you want to lift your heels, but a little bit more weight support in the balls of your feet. Engage your thighs and draw your kneecaps up, and really engage your belly here, breathing into that low back, expanding on each breath. So feel your ribs expand out to the sides and then front to back on the inhale. And then exhale, soften into the pose a little bit. Drop some more weight down into the fronts of those feet. We're going to move into Malasana garland pose in the next few moments. So as you inhale, look up, lift up halfway or a quarter of the way, and take some of that weight back into the heels. Bend your knees now, and your hands can come forward. Your heels can lift up at this point. Keep your feet pointing straight forward though, and your knees then just open up enough for your ribs to nestle down inside of your thighs. If you need to take your feet closer together or farther away to accommodate this pose, please situate your feet as needed for balance. Your hands can come around and grab your heels. Keep your sit bones, though, drawing down towards your heels and your forehead in towards your toes. And so your hands could come out to the floor for balance. If you've got something that you can jam under your heels there for a little support, you could roll up the back of your mat, or a blanket could slide in under your heels. Your hands could go under your heels. Keep your core engaged here and keep breathing into those back muscles. Keep breathing into the back ribs, expanding three-dimensionally with your breath. Even up to the back of your neck, feel that expansion. And then another nice smooth round of breath here before we transition. We're going to come down to seated. And so finish that round of breath. And on your next inhale, lift your head. You can take your hands down to the floor now and walk back with your hands to catch your sit bones on the ground. With your feet on the floor, take your feet slightly out in front of you, and then hug your knees, hug your shins, lift your chest. We're going to twist here. You can hook your left elbow on the outside of your right thigh, or you can hug around the front of your shins with your left forearm. Use your right hand on the floor behind you to just gently leverage this twist. Try to prevent the hips from being the main twisting point, so it's mostly in your upper back. Placing your hand, fingers pointing towards you, might help to open the right shoulder a little bit more. It sends the right elbow back, which sends the right shoulder back into its joint. If that doesn't feel good, if it jams your shoulder, you can turn the hand back out again. But try to keep your two shoulders level with each other, so the right shoulder's not higher or the left shoulder's not higher. Open across the chest. One more big inhale and exhale into that twist. Use your next inhale then to untwist. And again, you can squeeze your shins, give yourself a hug with your chest coming through your shoulders. Take as long here as you need before moving on to the second side twist so that you can make sure that there's no leftover twist from the first side before moving on. And then pushing down into your feet, spread out your toes, sit bones root, left hand behind, hug with your right elbow or hook with your right elbow across those shins or across the outer thigh. If your right elbow is hooking your outer left thigh, just make sure the right shoulder isn't rolling down or again lifting higher than the left shoulder. Expand across your upper chest, the front chest area, the collarbones. And then breathe into those ribs around the armpits. Again, if you feel like moving your fingertips, turning them in helps to turn your shoulder open more, just play with that. As you breathe here into the twist, it feels slightly different than the forward bends that we were in or downward facing dog. You may have to really focus that breath to move evenly on both sides, right and left, lungs and ribs. Feel each inhale as you push down into your sit bones, your spine gets taller, and each exhale, the twist gets softer. Using your inner thighs to keep your knees squeezing together, gently inhale, untwist, and come back into a hug, facing forward. All right, so from here, we're going to move into another twist. So take as long here just to sit and neutralize your spine before adding on. This twist will be just a slightly more core engaged twist, a little deeper. So we'll start by straightening out the left leg and keeping the right knee bent. I'm going to scooch back on my mat just so my left heel is on the floor. Now I am going to cross my right ankle over the outside of the left thigh. I want to keep my left leg straight here though, just to press out, and the right ankle is over the left thigh. Right foot flat on the floor, right toes pointing straight forward. Again, use your right hand behind you just like we did in the first twist, and your left elbow can either hug or hook your right knee. Keep those collarbones stretching across your chest and pressing the center of your sternum up to the ceiling. If you want to add in a bind, hook your left arm under the outside of your right leg and thread it through underneath so that your right hand can reach behind your back and hook those fingers or grab your left wrist. Your left hand actually would grab your right wrist. It might be a little easier that way, but keep pushing out through your left foot and driving out through the center of your left heel as you root down through your right sit bone. That doesn't mean the right hip isn't mobile. It doesn't mean it can't move. You're just gently pushing into the floor, being really aware of the foundation of your sit bones on the ground. From that driving down, you're going to inhale, lift your chest, open your heart a little bit higher. Exhale, one more breath into this twist. And then inhale, release your bind. Straighten out your right leg. And pause here for just a moment, untwisting, hands on the floor, Dandasana, staff pose. Good, and then we'll set that second side twist up, keeping your right leg straight, your right foot pressing out. Your left foot comes to the outside of your right shin, right at that knee area, so your left toes can stay pointing straight forward and foot flat on the floor. And now you're going to hook or hug with your right elbow. So moving into the twist first before setting up the bind so that you can make sure that the side twist is still going to be spacious enough to accommodate a bind. Press down into those sit bones so you can lift your low back up. Lengthen out of your low back so that the twist can wave up through the top of the spine and out, so the twist isn't happening in your hips and your low back. Again, that doesn't mean your left hip's not allowed to move. We just want to isolate the twist and make sure it's more focused in the upper back. If you're binding, left elbows, or the right elbow rather, is going to hook under the outside of your left leg and under. And then again here, you can reach those fingers to catch, or you can try to catch your left wrist with your right hand. And so your fingers can simply hook here. I like to use the hand that's the arm that's hooked, so it'd be my right arm in this case, to kind of pull the left fingers over, so my left fingers might start to hook the thigh, the right thigh. Push into the left foot as well as press out through your right foot. So both feet are active. And again, big inhale, lift and lengthen. And exhale into the twist. One more breath here. And you can use your next inhale then to release the bind, untwist gently, coming back to face forward, uncrossing your left leg so you're back in staff pose, Dandasana. And pause here for a few moments, lifting your ribs up off your waist and press down through your sit bones, press out through your feet. Hands are next to your hips. And then we're going to move this into an upward tabletop position. So take your hands behind you, fingertips pointing at your hips. Your heels are under your knees. Press your hips up. Make sure your shoulders are over your wrists. If you don't feel like your proportions are right here, you can always come down and scoot your feet forward or back a little bit more. Press from your glutes and your hamstrings, driving the center of your heels down into the floor and the heels of your hands as well. You can keep your gaze forward, or you can let your head come back a little bit and look up to the ceiling as long as that's comfortable in your neck. Lengthen your back muscles. Press the backs of your femurs up to the ceiling. Another big inhale here. Another round of breath if you can. Just one more. Exhale, and then one nice inhale. Before you exhale, lower your hips back down to the floor and come back to seated. Again, staff pose, Dandasana, just for a moment. You can rest your hands on your thighs. Let it be a little less active of a staff pose. Your wrists just did a lot of work, so give them a break. And then we'll take this into another option. You can revisit upward tabletop, or you could add on to upward plank pose. So for upward plank pose, again, my hands are going to come back, fingers pointing at my hips, elbows over the wrists, shoulders over the wrists. And then I'm going to start to walk my feet forward a little bit more and then straighten out my legs. So my shoulders are driving back over my wrists, fingers are still pointing towards my toes pointing towards the front of the room. And you can drop your hips down a little bit more and lift your toes up. I was kind of rounding in my low back here a little bit just to get those toes down on the floor. You could also turn your toes out a little bit so your outer feet are on the floor, and that might give you more room in your low back if this is sensitive for your lumbar spine. You can feel the stretch around those shoulder heads, so just a couple breaths here. We're not going to be here too long. It becomes really intense on those wrists and the shoulders. My elbows naturally hyperextend, so I'm going to let them do that. I don't want you to push your arms to look like mine. Just let your elbows do what they naturally do. And here I'm kind of turning my feet out a little bit to give that sacrum a break. Okay, lower down as you exhale. And then inhale into staff pose, easy seated pose. Easy seated pose, you could cross your ankles and sit here for just a few moments and just catch a couple rounds of breath before we move to stand. And then we're going to come up into handstand practice. So you can start to make your way to standing, just kind of coming over your ankles, hands and knees. And then if you're going to use the wall, which I'm going to do because I want to hold a longer handstand, I'm about 6 to 8 inches away from the wall, palms flat on the floor. And I'm just going to take a couple little hops up to the wall. If you have a little step stool or a chair that you can use to boost your height a little bit, you can step on the chair and then kick your other leg up to the wall. I'm looking down towards my fingernails and just let the heels rest. So I wanted it in this practice to take a handstand that is a little bit more of a back bend. And looking forward creates that nice extension in your neck. Engaging your abdominals and your glutes at the same time is going to help create an arch in your back. So now I'm actually starting to deepen this and take my head toward the wall. And if you're close enough to the wall, you might even be able to push your head into the wall. Please only stay in this as long as your wrists and your breath allow. So if you're starting to get pressure in the head and feel like you can't breathe, or your wrists feel like they're going to collapse, come out of it. And then you can play with taking one foot away from the wall and getting a little bit of air time in one leg. So the wall is just there as a prop. It's not a crutch. And then I'm really going to arch this out. So I want to work towards a little bit of a scorpion. So my head now is coming to the wall. My shoulders are going way over my fingertips. I'm going to spread my feet apart a little bit because that definitely helps with opening the low back. Then you might be able to take those heels off the wall, both or one at a time. Keep those thighs really strong. And then when it's time to come out, you let your feet come down to the floor. Please don't fight it. Listen to your body. So I just kind of fell out of that, and it was time to come out of it. And when it is time, land in Malasana garland pose. Just let your head drape, let your forearms rest, give your hands a break. Couple breaths here into your low back. I'm actually going to show you another option for handstand. So if you were just kind of getting in and out of handstand instead of holding it that whole time, you can work in one more variation here, and it would be turning around facing out away from the wall with your hands flat on the floor. I'm going to step one leg forward. It's kind of like my pyramid measurement. I use pyramid to determine how far forward my hands should be. And then I'm going to take those hands flat, come forward, shoulders over wrists, one foot to the wall, and then the other foot to the wall. And then from here, you can start to straighten out your legs. And one leg can lift up. One leg can stay on the wall, but here you're still looking to your fingernails, okay? So it's a really good work progression towards handstand, and take that as long as you want. You can pause this video and keep working on that handstand, but don't overtax your wrists. And then again, land in that garland pose. When you're done with that, we're going to come to the top of the mat, standing Samastitihi, with hands interlaced behind your back. Lift your thumbs away from your sacrum. Put a soft bend in your elbows, especially if you hyperextend like I do. So I have to consciously lift my elbows up to the ceiling away from my back. Press down into your heels. And you can even start to look up here and create another little gentle back bend. So you can see it's just a very, very gentle back bend. I'm not dropping back into my back. Lumbar spine, low back is really long. Thighs are engaged, so as muscles are engaged to protect your lumbar spine, but your glutes and your hamstrings are also engaged. You're lifting up those thumbs, lifting up your elbows. So feel your back muscles working, feel the tops of your arms working, your triceps working, biceps are slightly working. And then keep the front ribs tacked down so they're not distending forward. All right, release your hands and come back to standing pose, Samastitihi. Keep pressing down into the center of your heels and feel your toes expand and feel your toe box expand. So the base of your foot is broad and you've got a lot of surface area there. Next inhale, reach your arms up to the ceiling. And you're going to interlace your fingers here and then stretch off to the right. Squeeze your ears with your arms, both arms. So the right arm squeezes up, left arm squeezes down to your ear. And then you're going to squeeze your right side core and push down into your left foot. Keep rotating your left ribs open and keep turning your right ribs through. So your belly button is pointing straight forward, as are your two hip bones, rooting into that left foot just for counterbalance. It is a bit harder here to breathe evenly into both sides of your lungs and rib cage, but really try to even out that breath, even though the right side is actually shorter. So breathe into the left side and use that almost like it ricochets back over to the right and expands. And then inhale, lift back up nice and tall. Exhale to the other side. Push down into your right foot. Turn your right ribs open. Remember to squeeze your ears with your arms and keep opening your torso without turning your hips. Same thing here. Try to breathe evenly into both sides, even though the left side is shorter. So you breathe into the right and it expands into your left. Pressing down into your right foot. Keep the toes spread out. Exhale here. And then inhale all the way back up to the ceiling. Exhale, release your arms. Samastitihi, standing pose. And just neutralize the spine from that side bend. Just another round of breath here in Samastitihi. You can resituate your feet if they feel like they need to be wider or closer. On your next inhale, reach your arms behind your head. Interlace your fingers. And then we're going to take a little bit of a back bend. Open your chest here. Inhale, lengthen your spine. And then exhale, engage your core. Again, inhale, lengthen your spine, open your chest. Exhale, engage your core and deepen the back bend. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, lean back a little bit more, opening your elbows. And then inhale back up to stand. Exhale, squeeze your elbows in towards your forehead. Inhale into the back of your spine, lengthen. Exhale, pull your chin towards your chest, round your upper back. Inhale into the back of your spine, keep pushing down into your heels. Exhale, pull your chin down, pull your head down, round into a bit of a forward bend. Inhale into your spine. Exhale, round a little bit more. Now your shoulders are about as high as your hips. Inhale into your spine. And then the last exhale here, bend your knees and clamshell your elbows around your thighs, around your knees. Really deepen into this. And then on your inhale, lift up, stand up, press your legs to straight. Open your chest. And then exhale, Samastitihi. Inhale, one big opening here. Exhale, back up to stand. Release your arms. Samastitihi. Let your breath just move in and out, front of the body, back of the body. Try to feel it level out. Pull your right knee into your chest. Right foot now comes in the inside of your left thigh, Vrikshasana tree pose. If you feel like putting your foot on your thigh is really challenging for balance, keep the right knee squeezing up to your chest and use your hands to hold your right knee. Hands can reach up if you're balancing in Vrikshasana tree pose. Try not to lift the right glutes and try not to drop the front left hip. Press into your right foot from the outer left hip. And squeeze your left thigh bone with the left thigh muscles. Keep your gaze steady down past the bridge of your nose to some place on the floor that you can focus your balance, focus your gaze, focus your mind. Keep your shoulders open, your upper back and chest. One more inhale. And then exhale, release your arms. And then your foot comes down to stand, Samastitihi, standing pose. Again, inhale evenly around the front and the back of your body. So you're lifting your spine as you inhale. Pull your left knee up to your chest again here. So second side, and you can stick with that left knee squeezing into your chest if you feel like putting your foot into your thigh is challenging and the external thigh rotation throws off your balance. We're just working on balance. Left knee does not need to point all the way out to the side. So your left knee can just turn out slightly, especially if when you rotate your thigh more, your right hip lifts or drops rather, and your left glutes lift. So you don't want to have crooked hips here any more than, maybe they are, we're not symmetrical. Normal standing from side to side, we're not symmetrical. So if this throws it into even more of an imbalance, just try to adjust that so you can keep your natural stance. If your right toes need to turn out a little bit, please let them turn out a little bit. So here again, you can reach your arms up, the triceps, press your arms straight. Keep your gaze steady and focused. And then squeeze those thigh muscles around the thigh bones, both legs. And your outer left glutes and hip are working to pull the left knee open if you're taking the tree expression. If you've got your left knee squeezing into your chest, the front of your left thigh and hip are really working here. Exhale, release your hands, and then your left foot comes down to the floor. Samastitihi, standing pose. Inhale, reach your arms, Urdhva Hastasana, and exhale, forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale, lengthen out just about a half lift as you bend your knees, squat down, and then come down to your sit bones and roll all the way down onto your back into a reclining constructive rest pose. Feet are on the floor, knees pointing to the ceiling. And just take a moment here to let your back neutralize here. Your feet are still on the floor, so it's just as you were in standing pose. They're just not working as hard, but you're still aware of the foundation under your feet and the grounding sensation of your feet. Inhale as you push down into your hips and roll your pubic bone up to the ceiling. Roll your spine up off the floor. Roll up onto the shoulder heads. So your armpits can smile out and your hands can maybe even find each other underneath your backside. Your toes can turn out here to allow for that sacrum to open up a little bit more in bridge pose. Try not to take your chin to your chest. Instead, lengthen your back, lengthen the back of your neck, and take your chest toward your chin. And press straight down into your heels, lifting your hips back and over your shoulders. Thighs press up to the ceiling. Lengthen your neck. Inhale up into that back area here. You might even be able to see your belly rise and fall with the breath, that big expansion. Inhale, lengthen to your spine, and exhale, contraction into the back bend. Noticing those breaths, how they help, the inhale and the exhale help to stabilize this pose. And then one more nice smooth round of breath here before we let go of the hands. You can start to unlace your fingers, elbows to the floor, and then lower your back down, lower your hips down. And rest here, back into constructive rest pose. Again, you can let your knees rest against each other if that feels better. But let the back just neutralize with a couple of rounds of breath before swinging off to a twist. So you can let your knees now drift off to the left for a spinal twist. And if you need more time in constructive rest, please take your time there. Let your right arm just open out alongside you and anchor instead of forcefully grinding. You're just anchoring with the right arm, letting it be heavy, letting the right side of your body stretch and twist on a diagonal. Breathing in and out of your nose right into the right side. And here, think length on the inhale and core contraction on the exhale. Noticing how each breath balances this pose. Might be nice here to even sigh your next exhale out of your mouth. Big inhale and just let it go. And then on your next inhale, lift your knees back up, roll back over to your ribs, feet on the floor. Just take a moment here to let your spine untwist. Let your inner groin drop. Let your feet, again, sense the grounding. Let your feet sense the feeling of your mat and the floor underneath. And then we'll take this to that second side twist. You can let your knees drift off now to the right. Let your left arm anchor out with its heaviness. So the weight of your left arm is just anchoring this twist. Your right hand can assist your legs in the twist as long as it's not being too forceful or working too hard. And let your neck relax. Let your head rotate naturally wherever it feels like it should rotate. Maybe even close your eyes down here and imagine the flow of your breath and the paths, more than one really, that the breath takes throughout your body. And even here, feeling your belly expand, feeling the left side of your body and the right side of the body expand. Noticing how the inhale lengthens your spine. And the exhale, the contraction of the diaphragm and the core muscles help to stabilize the spine and twist. And so the balanced effects of the breath on this twist on your body. And then again, maybe a nice big sigh out of your mouth. And then on your next inhale, lift your knees back up through center. Take your feet to the floor. One more moment here to ground yet again after that twist. Feeling your hips even on the floor, your spine, your sides of your ribs even on the floor, your feet, and your arms right and left. Now hug your knees into your chest, just gently. Drawing your thighs down towards your belly. You can straighten out your legs if you prefer a straight leg version of this reclining forward bend. Grab your ankles or your heels and pull your feet down towards your forehead. Straight arms just kind of helps to pull on the toes. And then if you can pull yourself over into a full reclining forward bend with your feet on your hands. And if that's just simply too much, you can take a couple blocks under your hips instead. Or just stay there with your arms straight, your back on the floor, and your legs and your hands hooking each other. Your feet and your hands, rather. If you're in this reclining position on your shoulders, make sure your neck is soft and relaxed, and you're not forcing yourself into plow pose. This is a reclining forward bend. You can also bend your knees here if this becomes too intense. Breathe into your back here. So notice here how your belly may not be so inclined to expand as big as it typically would in a breath, but try to remind it to expand fully and breathe into those back ribs. I'm going to move into plow pose, and you're welcome to add in this position. Hands can come behind your back, interlace your fingers. And now there is a little bit more of a stacking of the hips over the shoulders. And now for this, I do like to bend my knees and take my knees to my forehead. It's my version of quiet pose. Typically in quiet pose, knees would come down around the ears, but I like this one better. It kind of stimulates the third eye, my brain, the front part of my brain where I typically work from, think from, and move from. So it's just kind of a massage for my forehead to me and a quieting for this place, because this is what I have a hard time quieting, is that front brain. And only stay here as long as it's comfortable in your neck and your shoulders. And you can start to plant your palms on the floor when it's time to roll back down onto your back. I like to immediately lift my chin up and just give that neck a release. And then even here, just sometimes a gentle roll back and forth from the side to the side on your head if you want to massage the back of your head. Let yourself land here in a relaxation pose. I'm choosing Shavasana. You're welcome to choose any shape. With your feet relaxed, your hands relaxed. And close your eyelids down. And here, notice the breath and the balancing effect it has on your body. With each inhale, feel length. and life. And with each exhale, feel there's a gentle contraction. There's an awareness, but there's also a softness with that. There's a sense of letting go with that. Breathing right around your core and letting the breath emanate out from there, expanding and carrying that energy and that softness throughout your body. Sending it through your shoulders, through your hips, out through your feet, out through your hands, and out through your head, your ears, your forehead, your face, your neck, the back of your neck, back of your head. And stay here for as long as you've got, just to focus on that breath, carrying peace and calm throughout your body.